On the rugged mountaintops, where lightning dances eternally with darkness, the Qasr al-Asifa, Storm Palace, stood tall as if defying nature itself. Its gleaming black stones reflected the flashes of lightning like eternal torches of wrath, while dark clouds encircling its walls added an aura of strength and mystery. Inside the grand hall, the celebration was in full swing. Melodious music from the strings of the oud, a traditional Arabic lute, resonated, carrying notes embodying the spirit of the desert, while rhythmic drum beats added majestic vibrations that pierced the soul. The aroma of oud, a fragrant wood used for incense, and musk, a fragrant substance in perfumes and incense, rising from ornate incense burners, mingled with the warmth of breaths and echoes of laughter. At the long tables adorned with gold and silver, nobles, sorcerers, and wealthy merchants exchanged toasts and admiring glances. The storm of power. At the center of the hall stood Ghazi bin al-Asif, the family's patriarch and the embodiment of authority, in his majestic presence. His black cloak embroidered with golden threads resembling lightning bolts inspired reverence and awe. His face, as solid as stone, conveyed only strength and control, while his eyes held a gaze reserved for an unseen storm known only to him. He declared in a deep voice to the man before him, "Wisdom subdues the winds, and lightning is the weapon of those who understand its power. Al-Asif will forever reign above all." At the edges of the hall, a guest whispered to his companion, "This banquet is a declaration of authority. Ghazi leaves no room for doubt." The other replied with a mocking smile, "Indeed, he knows how to subjugate all, storms included." Far from the clamor of the hall, an eerie silence enveloped the dark corridors. A lightning flash briefly illuminated the dancing shadows on the stone walls. At the end of one long corridor stood a figure, silent as if he were part of the darkness itself. With a stronger lightning flash, the figure's features were revealed for a fleeting moment. His plain black cloak flowed around him like an extension of the shadows, and his eyes, dark as a moonless night, reflected an inner storm of unknown depths. His fists clenched tight and his tense shoulders suggested a body on the verge of bursting. Before him was a massive portrait of Ghazi bin al-Asif, depicted in his full splendor. Yet his gaze carried no admiration or awe. His eyes fixed fiercely on the portrait, as though nature itself responded to his pent-up fury, the corridor merging with the storm ready to erupt. And silence began to dominate, leaving the place bathed in the silver light of a moon that adorned the clear sky. A few months ago, the full moon illuminated the Castle of the Storm, which perched atop a jagged mountain peak while the sands around it stretched out like a silent sea. On a nearby plateau, enemy ranks moved in rhythmic precision. Metal masks obscured their faces and their shields glinted under the moonlight. Their commander, mounted on a black stallion, raised his sword and gestured to his soldiers, "Kill everything in your path." Inside the fortress, the alarm bell tolled, signaling the start of the defense. Soldiers moved swiftly to their positions, while Tahir watched from atop the ramparts with a keen, calculating eye. "Tahir, Qasim, head to the cliff. Shaheen, take the knights to the plaza. Archers, prepare to cover any advance." The orders were clear and direct. The soldiers moved, each knowing his duty, while Tahir monitored the battle's progress with caution. He glanced for a moment at the full moon and whispered, "The castle shall not fall, no matter the cost." In the plaza, Shaheen stood in anticipation of the slaughter. He looked up at the full moon and remarked, "What a perfect night for a bloodbath." Then, looking at his soldiers, he gave a decisive command. "Follow me. Tonight, we end this threat." He leaped from the wall with grace, his feet striking the ground with power, and his sword rose to deflect the first blow from an enemy soldier. The piercing neigh of his majestic red horse cut through the chaos. Shaheen mounted in one swift motion, leading the knights into the heart of the enemy ranks. With every strike, his blade carved through their lines. An enemy soldier cried out in terror, "He cannot be stopped." On the cliffside, Qasim watched the movements with steady, unwavering eyes. Holding his bow, he released an arrow that struck its target with lethal precision, causing chaos among the enemy. Behind him, his hawk circled warily, waiting for the signal. "Qasim, stay in the sky. We will need your timing." As an enemy soldier approached his position, the hawk dove, forcing the intruder to retreat. With a thin smile, Qasim whispered, "Well done, my partner."
From his vantage point on the wall, Tahir followed the battle's tide, directing his forces with stern authority. "Archers, focus on their commander. Knights, do not leave the flank exposed." His voice held firm command, but inside him was a lingering sense of comparison. He muttered as he watched Shaheen in the thick of the fray. "Always at the forefront, while I remain here planning from the shadows." As the battle reached its peak, the howling of wolves began to echo from the horizon. The screaming stopped for a moment, and everyone froze in place. Shaheen lowered his sword slightly, a look of relief washing over him despite the carnage. He muttered to himself with a faint smile, "Every time they think they have brought us down, the power of shadows arrives to show them the truth." He then looked at the terrified soldiers before him and added in a louder voice, "Steady yourselves. The night has grown deeper." From between the shadows emerged a she was wearing an Arabian dress that covered her entire body, and the hijab was draped from her head over her face as if to prevent anyone from looking at her beauty. She was barefoot, her steps confident as if the winds were rearranging the sands beneath her feet. Her anklets chimed like raindrops on copper plates, harmonizing with the stillness of the Arabian night. Around her neck, a cobra moved gracefully as if it were a keeper of the desert's secrets. Behind her, the black wolf like a knight appeared with its majestic presence. Its glowing eyes pierced through the darkness, and between its powerful jaws it carried the head of the enemy commander. Slowly it stepped toward the stunned soldiers and crushed the skull between its teeth like a dry eggshell, making a horrifying sound. A slight smile played on the girl's lips, and her eyes gleamed with cold confidence. She approached the wolf and sat beside it gently, her fingers trailing through its blood-stained fur. The crimson droplets dripped onto her red dress, adding depth to a presence that blended dread with beauty. The night breeze carried the scent of oud, mingled with blood, and the frozen sands under the silver moonlight bore witness to a terrifying silence befitting the event. In a scene that radiated both awe and power, she raised her blood-stained palm toward the moon, its light reflecting on her face, which shone like a full moon on a dark night. She spoke in poetic verse. "If the storms have slumbered beneath the moonlight's glow, I am their awakening. The danger they shall know."